Yeah, shall we move on to something more positive like the assassination of Martin Luther King?
Yeah, yes. This is what we need. And then mine works into that one quite well.
Yes, it does. So I know I mentioned it last week, but
first of all, government secret segment number 2.
yes. This is the continuation of last week. I mentioned it last week, but after saying that, I figured like we really should go through what actually happened in the assassination of Martin Luther King. And I had, as I mentioned last week, I had Dr. William Pepper. As I said last week, I'm sorry, his name is Dr. Pepper. You just got to deal with it. And he put out a book. He put out multiple versions of the book called The Plot to Kill King. Now, this guy is not some random guy who wrote this book. He worked with Martin Luther King the final year of his life, then ultimately became James Earl Ray's lawyer, although for like 10 years after Martin Luther King died, Pepper still thought that James Earl Ray had killed him. And so he was not his lawyer during that time. But slowly he started to realize the reality of it. And after that, he became James Earl Ray's lawyer. He also was the lawyer for the King family. So this guy has done nothing, almost nothing, but either represent or work with or write about Martin Luther King's execution for the past, 40 years. So if anyone knows it, it's him. Anyway, let me go through some of these points. James Earl Ray, who everyone in America thinks shot Martin Luther King, James Earl Ray said he was innocent, except for basically one moment where he agreed to sign the confession because he was told by his lawyer that it was the only way he'd get a trial. So he signs the confession. He then finds out he's not going to get a trial, and he recants his confession and sticks by that till his dying day, despite the fact that he was offered freedom. He was offered to get out of jail early, and he was offered money, like book deals and stuff, if he would just admit it and, write a book about how he killed King or whatever. And he always refused. He always refused money. He refused to get out of jail early. He said he didn't kill Martin Luther King. So there was a trial in 1999, which Graham, did you know, like most people didn't know, did you know about this? The only trial ever held on the assassination of Martin Luther King was in 1999. And
what?
In 1999, after 70 witnesses and 30 days of a trial, the jury, 12-person jury, came back within like an hour and said that the killer was not James Earl Ray. It was a man named Lloyd Jowers, helped others, combined with government agencies to assassinate Martin Luther King. This was a actual trial in Memphis, Tennessee. And it was even covered in Snopes likes to say that, this is false. And one of the claims is they do say the trial's real, but one of the claims is that the media did cover the trial, because one of my claims and others' claims is the media just ignored it. And so Snopes says, no, the media did cover the trial. And they point to one page A19 paragraph by the New York Times admitting the trial happened, but basically saying it didn't matter. So
in 1999,
the King family, represented by Dr. William Pepper, held this trial, a civil trial. And like I said, they found that the killer was government agencies, along with Lloyd Jowers. Now, Lloyd Jowers, let me get into this, was still alive at the time, and he was the owner of Jim's Grill. Jim's Grill is directly below James Earl Ray's apartment room that he was renting. So basically, they claim the shot came out of the apartment, whereas the shot actually came out from behind Jim's Grill. Now, Lloyd Jowers had decided to confess because he realized he was up against the wall. Another witness, his former girlfriend named Betty Spates, had admitted that she saw Jowers bring the gun, the still smoking gun, into the grill from the back door and break it down in a bag, basically take it apart and put it in a bag. And she was terrified to come forward, but ultimately came forward. And so there was more than one witness, including her, that said they knew Jowers had the gun, the rifle that had been used. And Jowers was not the one that took the shot, though. Jowers helped two Memphis police officers take the shot. And they I'm trying to skip down some of my notes here. They were named Earl Clark and Frank Strouser. And Frank Strouser is the one who actually took the shot, according to William Pepper. And Strouser had been at the gun range all day. He's a sharpshooter. He was at the gun range all day that day before the day before, because King was shot at 6 a.m. So he was at the gun range all day, and the janitor at the gun range didn't know what he was going to do, but knew that this cop, Strouser, was there all day with a special gun, practicing his firing all day. And when that janitor decided to come forward, Pepper had to keep it a secret because he was afraid, the janitor guy was afraid that he'd be killed if it came out. Strouser would kill him because Strouser had threatened him. So that guy finally dies. That's when Pepper is able to reveal that the janitor had told him all this. And anyway, Frank Strouser, when confronted by Pepper, he has no excuses. Like he goes, he pretends he doesn't even remember like when King was killed, like what time of day. Like he said, what time of day that happened? He goes 6 o'clock. And he's like, AM or PM. Now imagine you're a Memphis police officer. This is the biggest event. You're on duty. This is the biggest event to ever happen in Memphis, at least assassination wise. And you don't know whether it was 6 a.m. or p.m. That'd be like a firefighter not knowing when the towers fell in New York, if they were in New York at the time. It doesn't make any sense. And anyway, Daniels Ellsberg also apparently signed an affidavit saying he had heard from reliable sources that King had been killed by men under J. Edgar Hoover. So the Hoover connection comes in because Hoover basically had his people go to Memphis and arrange it to some degree. They kind of outsourced it to this Dixie Mafia. The Dixie Mafia got Strouser to take the shot and worked with Lloyd Jowers. And, it's amazing how many different witnesses and things have come forward, and even the King family. Like Dexter King went and met with James Earl Ray in prison and shook his hand and said, "I'm sorry this has happened to you," because the whole King family knows that King was not shot by James Earl Ray.
Wow. And I wonder, let me guess here, is the reason what was the media talking about in 1999? Was it a cocktail dress and Monica Lewinsky? Was that what was going on in 99? Because a lot of things didn't get covered, like, Bill Clinton getting rid of Glass-Steagall and all that other stuff. So, wow, this is, oh man. And that's how the media works. I always say, like, whenever the media is screaming about whatever the big story is, I always go, how are they framing it? What do they want us to believe from this? And what are we not talking about? Whenever there's something big.
One of the biggest examples of that I covered a few weeks back, which was every time Trump would say he was going to withdraw troops from somewhere, a big story would drop about how either Syria used chemical weapons, Russia's paying the Taliban to kill American soldiers. Like these amazingly huge stories that sound bizarre and have anonymous sources in the Pentagon always seem to just drop right on top of Trump saying he's withdrawing troops from somewhere.
Yeah, every time. It's every time too. And it's the same thing, like, oh, impeachment was great to keep people distracted from, the economy collapsing or whatever, or Epstein or whatever it is. There's always some crazy distraction that keeps us from what's really going on. And here it is, probably one of the biggest stories of the last century, of that MLK was assassinated by the government, not some lone white guy, the lone wolf guy. And it's like, the lone
white guy who also had an alibi that it was basically covered up that this had ever been investigated. But he said he left that room he rented, which was directly across from King's Motel. He said he left there before that, the shot happened, because he was going to get a spare tire fixed or get a spare tire or something. And apparently two guys had seen him in his car because he had a distinctive Mustang or something. And those two guys, that their testimony or whatever, what they said to police, that they had seen that guy, driving away before the shot was taken, that was just completely ignored until Pepper unearthed it, like in the 80s. So unbeknownst to James Earl Ray, there had been people that had said they'd seen him not at the apartment.
Wow.
I mean, it's just stuff like that. And then last week I mentioned how the following morning, because basically there were these huge hedges out back Jim's grill, which is where the shot came from. And if you get rid of those hedges, all of a sudden you say, well, no, the shot couldn't have come from there because there's nowhere to hide. It would have just been a guy standing out there with a gun. But so the following day, all the hedges are cleared out. Like a massive maintenance job is done the following day after this assassination to clear out all these hedges. It's just...
I love when a municipality just happens to do a massive project on a crime scene.
I mean, good for them, though, to really get that work done, because lots of times you can't find good people that can really get some hedges, uproot some hedges real quick. But they fucking did that job.
Yeah, the Ambassador Hotel in California got closed down real quick after the Kennedy thing. Like, would they put a smoothie joint over where the grassy knoll was? Like, they just wherever they just like, whoops, this was already on the books.
Come from the smoothie joint. I mean,
it's just like it's just. Oh, weird. The FAA has just announced that they're getting rid of flight logs. Oh, that's a weird one. Why would that happen? Why would they get rid of flight logs? I'm curious. This is like, especially when you get into the 60s, when all this real like radical revolution stuff was really happening, where people were like challenging things, much like where we are kind of ramping up to now.
Well, yes, but also it was a bit more of the Wild West, where the CIA would just kill people when they felt they needed to. Whereas now, like with Assange, they feel the better tactic is to like tarnish their reputation to a level that no one will quote them or talk about them, and then to also usually get them locked up for years on end. So they tend to have a more complicated playbook instead of just pure assassination, but they still will go there at times. But I think nowadays it's less just like a shot out of nowhere.
Yeah, they learned because too many questions were asked after all these assassinations. I mean, and we talked about it on the episode where I brought up Bobby Kennedy's assassination. There's a lot of cover up. I mean, they benefited from that one because some people were just like, oh, we're still talking about the JFA conspiracy. Let's just put this to bed, but all of them, I mean, Malcolm X, MLK, Bobby, JFK, there's all this like, wait a minute. And they realized that just people ask too many questions, where you're right. They got more sophisticated. Mary
Meyer, JFK's significant lover, assassinated in broad daylight a year after he was killed here in Washington, D.C. We'll cover that on another episode.
Of course. There's all these. So now they've gotten smarter, and they smear the person, like you say. They just smear them so they can't come forward, or they get something on them and they're like, we'll take you down. Or they put them in jail. And you've noticed in the last 30 years or so, a lot more accidental deaths, a lot more people like Gary Webb shooting himself in the head twice. And that's a suicide. We all know that's how you commit suicide, is you go bam, bam, you get two off.
You got to double tap on a suicide. Come on now. Listen, because Graham, you don't know if that guy's going to get up. All right. So you gotta.
Good point.
Finish him off.
And like all of it. So like, like Seth Rich, which I know we're not allowed to ask questions about him, otherwise we're conspiracy freaks, but like, is a robbery gone bad, even though nothing was taken off of him or whatever? Like now it's always sort of.
And it's like that, where that happened is like one block from where, I mean, it's like less than a mile from me. And it's like one block from where John F. O'Donnell lived, the Redacted Tonight correspondent. Mm-hmm. And it's like a really fucking a rather safe neighborhood. Like it's got to be the only murder that's ever taken place in that neighborhood. Like at least in the past 15 years.
Yeah. And I love the robbery gone bad, because after you shot someone, you wouldn't at least grab the wallet, right? You wouldn't get something for your trouble. You just, so.
Well, that's actually very similar to Mary Meyer, the Kennedy's lover I mentioned, who the argument was that in broad daylight at like noon, she would go for her walk along the canal towpath or whatever. And this black 25-year-old man just came up, like tried to like maybe rape her for like a second, didn't actually take any clothes off, just like tried to grab her, and then decided, no, you know what? She's yelling, I'll just kill her. And then like shot her twice, and then just walked off and was quickly caught. And because yeah, that happens all the time. People are just like, you know what? Maybe I'll just rape this person. No, I'll just kill him
in the middle of the day.
Middle of the day.
And what could she possibly know? What mistress of a president? What could they possibly?
Well, I should save it for the next show. But she'd been going around. She was an aristocrat, if you will, in America. You know, her father was like the governor or lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania. Like, you know, she'd been close with JFK since they were in high school. And her ex-husband was one of the heads of the CIA, and she was running around saying that it was not Oswald that killed Kennedy, and
right.
that she knew that if it was him, that at least the CIA put him up to it. And anyway, that did not go over too well.
Yeah, that's weird. That's weird. When everybody has like real information about something, suddenly some horrifying accident happens. They just happen to do that.
Everybody, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification button and the subscribe button, even if you've done it before, because they're unsubscribing, many of you, every day. Watch the ads all the way through. If you click skip ad, I don't get paid. Also, support us at patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood. Rockfin.com is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. All my videos are on Rockfin ad-free. Thanks for watching.